What's up, everyone? We are live on YouTube, and today we are going to be talking about this Mobile Suit Gundam RPG. We're gonna kind of do some monster manual type stuff, and hopefully it'll be fun. So, without further ado, let's just hop right into the rulebook as is. Now, this is a private version of the rulebook. Obviously, I can't expose the in process editing one to everyone, so I have two copies of it on Google Documents. But let's take a look at what I've got so far as the Codex of Mobile Suits goes, and yeah, hopefully you can check it out. I've also got my Discord open, so if anyone's on the Discord and wants to shout at me, I can hear you, but I probably have my mic muted. Let's do this real quick. Make sure my sound is good here. All right, so let's just hop right into it. As with everything with this Mobile Suit Gundam tabletop RPG so far, it's been based pretty heavily on D&D 5e rules. So let's just scroll through the outline here and get to our Codex of Mobile Suits. All right. So as I mentioned before, we're focusing on the 1 year war for now, and then we'll start exploring stuff from Zeta Gundam and all that. Um, we'll start exploring stuff from Zeta Gundam and all that in the later campaign settings that we're gonna come out with. Um, Now this is about as far as I got, which is really not a whole lot, but really the most difficult thing was getting the formatting right for this for this part of the book. Good deal. Making sure that looks good. Um, so as you can see, I've got two different tables here. Both of them are for the RGB 79 ball. And I completely forgot to mention that yeah, the new studio space is almost up and running. You know, Still need to decorate a little bit. I've got this light that's kind of like right in my face, so sorry if I look like a ghost. But yeah, so we're looking here at the RGB 79 ball, and there are two tables here that I have laid out, and I haven't filled out all the information on them just yet, but I'll tell you like what these are all about. Um, so I tried to lay them out as closely as possible. If you We're gonna hop over here to D&D Beyond real quick, just for brevity's sake. Normally I would have out some source books and things like that, but for brevity's sake, what we're gonna do is pull up D&D Beyond, and as you can see, they kind of have their monsters laid out in a similar way in this table format as what I've got over here for my level 1 RB79 ball infantry. So you've got the white table with the green border is the mobile suit itself. So it's going to have like armor stats and things like that, um, designed specifically for player use, or if you're a DM and you're creating your own bad guys, this would be your foundation to start with. And then my intent is to, with each of these gray tables, to create, essentially a monster manual, a codex of bad guys, and it'll have the stats for. I'm thinking like 2 to 3 per mobile suit. Will kind of have like different level soldiers just to represent different challenge ratings and things like that. And basically, what I'm gonna do is hop back and forth from D&D Beyond, looking at the CR rating of some of these bad guys, and sort of translate that as closely as I can to the mobile suits. So some obvious call outs here. So you've obviously got the name of the mobile suit in the top bar. You've got the mobile suit type listed underneath it. The properties tab is where, in the last video I talked about the tag system, where we're going to be talking, like, you'll have some mobile suits that are variable type mobile suits, other mobile suits are Gundam type mobile suits. This is where all of those tags are going to be listed for reference purposes. And then you'll have, your base armor points, which should be a value between 7 and 12, because it basically multiplies by your character level, similar to, D&D 5e. You're going to start with somewhere between like 8 and 13 health points, and then, every level you're almost just like adding another 8 to 13 depending on how you roll. Below that, we've got our base evasion rate, which, as I've said, is basic. It's just your AC. What they have to roll to hit you. The gen cap below that, which is controls the number of upgrades that you can equip to your mobile suit. And then below that, we have a little table that has all of the movement speeds. The movement speeds I based on the SD Gundam G Generation Genesis mobile suit stats. So, every mobile suit's obviously going to have some various compatibilities with space, land, air, water, all that good stuff. So, this is where you'd fill all of that out. And then if you hop down to the enemy version of that table, you're going to have, a level which would represent the character level of the enemy that you're trying to represent here, and then, what the mobile suit they have is, and what the class or mobile suit specialty is of that particular enemy. Below that, you'll have, the particular type of mobile suit, and then you'll also have what faction they belong to. So in this case, an RB-79 ball would be a Federation mobile suit. And then down here, we would have the calculated values for your evasion rate, your total armor points, space speed on various places. So, you know, obviously it's going to save space on the enemy side because we don't have to have this full table, because the enemies aren't going to be able to modify their mobile suits, and if they do, it's just the DM kind of modifying the mobile suit for them. So in this case, you see that I've already got the speed for the ball listed for space and midair. That's because the land and undersea speeds are going to be 0 meters, because the R the RB-79 ball doesn't. Why did I put RGB? The RB-79 ball, then messed myself up. Yeah, so the RB-79 ball can't walk, so we don't have to worry about that. But because it is a mobile armor, it's just ever so slightly faster than your standard mobile suit, so it can move that extra 10 meter. I think that's 10 meters more than our average move speed. I'll have to go back and check on that. Below the move speeds in there, you're going to see that you've got your ability scores listed out. I believe that I copied these specific ability scores from like an acolyte. Was that it? I mean, no, I think the acolyte's pretty weak comparatively speaking. But that's the idea. I'm gonna basically try to create challenge ratings for each of these mobile suits. So looking at the RB-79 ball, you know, I think that a single player should probably be able to take out 4 of these guys. So their CR is probably going to be, a quarter, maybe even an eighth, at least for a level 1 guy. All right, and then below that is where we're going to list out all the other details, such as skills, senses, languages. Well, there's not going to be languages for, everyone speaks. I guess it's English, technically. I mean, in Mobile Suit Gundam, they never really address what language everyone's speaking, but everyone seems to understand one another. But I don't know if it's intended to be Japanese or not. So I don't know. Just one of those mysteries, right? One thing that is missing from, and I just caught myself on this. We're gonna have to add a little section in here, and I think that this is probably the best place to do it for the cost of each mobile suit. Probably going to be in the tens of thousands of gila, as we talked about with currency. That's the only referenced currency that I could find in the Gundam universe, so that's what we're going to go with. Damn. All right. And then below that, you've got your features, actions, and legendary actions. Same as D&D 5e, honestly. It's going to be where we list out the different attacks and, spell-like abilities that each spell-like abilities, new type abilities that each enemy will have. Just for quick reference for the DMs. Um, so hopefully, I've kind of blathered on enough about this. We can sort of dive in and complete these particular tables. Um, let's see here. And do let me know in the chat if this is too difficult to read and I can bump up the screen size. Um, I don't have it formatted ideally, I'm sure. Alright, so we've got skills, senses, that's going to be, our passive perception, things like that. Um, Gotta get our CR in there. Although, yeah, okay, we do want to put that in there. I left extra room in here and I don't remember why. I'm sure it will come to me eventually. One of the things I want to do with the formatting of this table is go in here and remove that side of that little separator. Um, what are you doing? Let's bold these up. So I'm going back and forth about whether or not we want to give the ball the mobile armor property or just say that it is a mobile armor. Um, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last video, but with these sort of mobile suit tags, what I'm looking at doing is making each of them actually mean something. So, for instance, mobile armors will have a faster move speed in space or in midair, wherever they're more effective. Um, Variable mobile suits obviously will have different move speeds based on the whether or not they're in Wave Rider mode or what have you. So, do we want to give the ball the benefit of having those added perks? And then, the downside of that, of course, balancing wise, is that a player would have to have multiple proficiencies. Um, let's have a look here. Dun, dun. I'm just pulling up my references. Ah, very cool. So another thing that I did one day while I was, you know, just hanging around working on this thing, I created some a level up guide. I was doing this as a way of seeing how everything would balance out at later levels. So what I did was I created a little sheet here in Google Sheets, and we have two tabs. One is the sort of character sheet, and the other is mobile suit stats. So as you can see, I've got a bunch of stats here down the columns and or down the rows, and then in the columns I've got various 0079 mobile suits, so 1 year war mobile suits. Now the idea here was I would kind of fill. These are arbitrary values for now. Again, I don't know how these things are going to balance out once we start playtesting, but um, it was a way of laying this out on a spreadsheet so that I could then fire up a character sheet that has some predetermined ability scores that I rolled at random, and it's math enabled, of course. So, for instance, if we hop into this reactions tab and we drop this ability score from 15 down to 13, you should see some values change in the tables here. Did they? Did they change? And then let's take a look at if we take the will value. There we go. So yeah, you see that the health points of characters changed, the armor points changed based on the will modifier. Um, so yeah, pretty cool. And I kind of wrote out the formulas that I was using down here on the right just for reference purposes. So seeing as how this is, kind of a weak mobile suit, it's designed to be light armor, fast, and kind of an entry level mobile suit. We're gonna start with the base armor points of 7, which seems low, but once you factor in um, that character probably is gonna have a high evasion rate, um, you know, I think that it'll even out. And I imagine that if any player starts at level 1 with a ball, then they're probably in the new type category, and they're probably trying to work their way up to a mobile armor that's Valwallo or something like that. Let's hop back into that spreadsheet and take a look at the stats here. So it looks like I didn't even add the ball to this when I originally made it. Um, Scott, you could just, you could just hop on the Discord with me. Um, but thank you. I am trying to work on this. All right, so I guess we're gonna start with a base evasion of 10. We might bump it up to 11, just depending on balance. If this ends up being too weak, I don't want to make and this is kind of the struggle with having your monster manual be your armor guide for your players, is that you want the armor to be strong enough for your players but not so strong that your enemies are going to be, beastly. Um, Looks like I've got a little partner helping me. You say hi, Sammy? You say hi? So let's hop back into that spreadsheet. And yeah, let's stick with same thing. We'll stick with these GM stats that I dropped in here. We'll probably bump the GM stats up to like 8 armor points and 8 gen cap, just to give it a little more beefiness. All right. So if we are calculating evasion rate by proficiency with the mobile suit plus the base evasion rate of the mobile suit, plus their reactions modifiers, you're going to be looking at an evasion rate of 1 plus 2 for their base proficiency and 7. So their base evasion rate is going to be 10. That's probably low enough that, I mean, that's going to be like easily a 75% hit rate for level 1 players. And so a party of 4 level 1 players are going to destroy a ball infantry. If we've got our base armor points at 7, we're going to add the engineering modifier, bump it up to 8. Da, 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 da. The movement speeds are correct here. And let's look at our senses. So, passive perception would be 10 plus their mentality modifier, so it is 10. And I mean, I think that's going to be it for that kind of stuff. Um, Now, because they are infantry, we're going to have to swing back to earlier in the guide. So, infantry skill proficiencies. So you get to choose two from acrobats, land knowledge, repair, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and salvage. So I don't think that salvage or repair or land knowledge, these are not going to be really important skills for an enemy unit to have. So I think we're going to be looking at we'll probably be looking at intimidation and perception. Just real basic skills that, because you're not going to be role playing as these guys. These are the monsters of the game. So let's hop back down here. And I believe we said, did I say intimidation? Let's go acrobatics and intimidation. Okay. And then, yeah, we're going to make this challenge rating 1/4 because he is a bum. Now, features. Let's have an example of some features that we would see um, on some D&D monsters. Um, Also, big shout out to Shomik for sharing his D&D Beyond. Uh, he's got the master subscription, and he shared it with the home D&D group. So we all have access to some of these. I definitely don't have Storm King's Thunder uh, in my subscription. So it looks like a lot of these you know enemy features are going to be things like special abilities, special powers. I don't think that these are going to be the kind of things that a level 1 bad guy is going to have. Um, I think we're going to be waiting until we get to higher level enemies. Oh, there we go. See, I knew I'd stumble across the things that I was missing as well. So, damage immunities and damage resistances. That is going to be important for these guys. Thank you, D&D Beyond. Um, and of course, this is going to be something that I'm a big fan of Matt Colville, as you all know, and one of the things that he says is that the DM is not beholden to the rules. If you want a bad guy to have damage immunity to, you know, beam weaponry, then why not do it? Rules are for players, not for DMs. Now, of course, that said, a level 1 ball infantry is not going to have any damage immunities or resistances. They are toast. Interesting, though, that the formatting changes that I made didn't take effect. Let's make sure that everything's good. Um, hmm. Yeah, I don't know why that's not working for me. Oh. Yes, thank you, Scott. I have used the Gundam Wikia, um, and we're gonna end up having to use the Wikia, the Gundam Wiki, pretty extensively when we get into some of the weird mobile suit variation stuff. Absolutely, and especially when you think about like all of the variants. I know that a buddy of mine, Chris, is a huge Gundam Death Scythe fan. But you know, you've got like a couple different versions of Gundam Death Scythe. You know, you've got the regular one, and then you've got the Endless Waltz one, and then you've got the Endless Waltz Death Scythe Hell. It's yeah, you get crazy in there. Now, features for the ball infantry, we're probably looking at none, but actions is where we get into some of these base attacks. Now, we haven't really gone into a lot of weapons and equipment yet. I did make some as just an example, but they're not particularly extensive. Um, in the case of the ball, I think that we might go with something like a. It's got to be somewhere between a machine gun and a bazooka because they have that giant cannon. Oh hey, let's check the wiki that Scott just sent me. Um, so 180 millimeter recoilless cannon. Um, well, if it's only a little larger than a 120 millimeter machine gun. Um, so our damage 1d6 plus reaction modifiers, ammunition 100 to 10. So we're probably going to look at, let's go with 1d8 damage plus reaction modifier. Um, and we'll go with bazooka range. So let's pop back down. And you know what? Let's go crazy with it because, as you know, there are. Thanks, Sammy. Come here. As you know, there are variants of the ball that have, you know, the two head mounted cannons. And so let's go with that. Give it like a multi attack. Well, maybe at the higher levels we'll give it a multi attack. That'll be a fair. Attack 1d8 plus the reaction modifier damage. Oh, we should probably ranged attack plus 1 because that is the reactions modifier. So plus 1 to hit. I guess we don't have to put reactions modifier. We can just put 1, make it a little easier on the GM. Yeah, there we go. 180mm cannon, ranged attack, plus 1 to hit, plus 1d8 plus 1 ballistic damage, and let's pop in the range, and so the effective range was 250 to 1000 millimeters, or millimeters, meters. Millimeters would be like if gunplow were fighting. And ammunition, let's do yeah, let's do 2 rounds to 40 rounds. So 2 rounds per 2 rounds per magazine, 40 rounds total. So they'd have to reload every other turn. That sounds fair. And I haven't decided whether or not reloading is going to be whether it's going to be a bonus action or a full action. It might be one of those things that we add a feat in there that shows, hey, quick reload. All right. So now that we've got our first enemy in place, let's go ahead and copy. And oh, whoa. Went a little crazy with it. I don't like the way that column is breaking there, though. So let's go ahead and insert. Well, if we insert the column break after here, it'll give me some space to put some flavor text up here. So, I can write something. What I was originally writing was like, once the backbone of the Earth Federation Space Forces military and industrial force, the RB-79 ball is a all-purpose utility and all-purpose utility mobile armor. Just, something generic like that. I'll put something in there for every mobile suit as we go. And obviously, I'm going to want to leave room for images anyway. So, if we've got a level 1 ball, the toughest ball that you'll probably ever come across is, let's say, a level 4, probably like a lieutenant. Somebody that's, well, they're just a madman because, they have a suicide wish. So yeah, we'll call it a medium mobile armor, evasion rate 10. Well, see, so this is where we're going to want to hop into D&D Beyond again. And so for a level 1 ball being a quarter of a challenge rating, we're going to want to find an example of what a CR1 monster would be so that we can copy their ability scores, roughly. See, and even in D&D Beyond, you see you've got like 1/8, 1/2. So, no, we're gonna stick with 1. Yeah, Scott, you're right. Mimic, or borrow. We're going to borrow some stats from D&D 5e. So an albino dwarf spirit warrior. That'd be a fun one. These stats look roughly like what we're looking for. I'm probably gonna do something like this, some kind of humanoid. Yeah, let's actually filter by humanoid because I think that's gonna give us better results for this particular exercise. And we might even want to look specifically at things like hobgoblins or drow. Here we go, goblin boss. I feel like that's he still has pretty poor stats. But for a Federation infantry, what we're looking for is, some stats that are pretty high in the strength, dex, con, or in our case, will, reflexes, and engineering, but pretty low on the mentality scale. So we'll probably, if he's going to be a level 4, let's go ahead and we will give him an extra 2 mentality, just so that he's got a little bit of a modifier to his perception. We're going to give him a plus 3 to his engineering, bump that up as well. We're going to give him a full 4 to his reactions, and that way he will be a much deadlier opponent. And we'll leave the will the same, I think that's fair. But it will up his evasion rate to 12, so a little harder to hit. It will up his armor points. So if he's going to be level 4, let's take a look at that spreadsheet again. So it would be 4 times his level plus proficiency. So we're looking at something like 7 times 4. Uh-oh. I just showed my Achilles heel is math. um, oh, thank you. Um, so we'll start with that 28 plus his proficiency, so 2, that's 30, and then plus his will would be 31. So 31 total armor points. I think that's a fair challenge. We're going to stick with no immunities, no resistances. Let's bump up his CR rating to 1. Um, I'm debating adding something like, if I remember in D&D 5e, you've got something like pack tactics for beasts. That might be an interesting thing for a ball pilot to do is find a way to flank you with their partners and outnumber you. So let's have a look at that. Here we go. So a wolf has pack tactics, has advantage on attack rolls against a creature if at least one of the wolf's allies is in. I think that's a fair. Yeah, I think that would be a really cool special ability for him to have. So we'll call it unit tactics, and let's just borrow this text, and I'll just edit out the things that are not relevant to our game. So the ball has advantage on attack rolls against a target because we don't have creatures. If at least one of the ball's allies, let's see how many times I can say ball tonight, is within 10 meters, because we've translated feet to meters. Wow. Way off. Within 10 meters of the enemy and the ally is not capacitated. I think that's fair. All right, I think that is a good looking enemy. I don't know if I'm gonna go back and forth about that 180 millimeter double barrel cannon. We'll see what happens when we actually play test this thing, whether or not a ball is a threat to the players. So that's it. That's going to be every entry in this particular. And we're just going to go ahead and copy the whole thing and paste it in here. As you can see, I've already got a list going of all of the mobile suits that we're going to be covering. It'd be really cool if we could get through all of the Federation mobile suits tonight, but we'll see how I hold up. So, as you all know, the GM is the mass-produced but less effective version of the RX-78 Gundam. Well, we'll say the prototype RX-78-2 Gundam. That's probably where that RGB came from, is I had RGM-79 in here. So the GM, we're going to call this a medium mobile suit. Again, I still don't know what the prices are going to be. Oh, that's something that I messed up there, because I've got it listed as a small ball and then a medium ball. Let's fix that. Alright, so our GM is going to be a little tougher than a ball. We're going to bump up its armor points and its generator capacity. But it is going to be significantly slower at only... Oh, well, it actually won't have a mid-air speed because it can't fly, but it can float in space, so... and its undersea speed is actually going to be a lot lower, from ocean drag. Especially since I think, do we have the RAG 79, the Aqua GM? It's not in there yet, but I'll probably end up adding it. All those specialty GMs from the mobile suit variations. Now the question is, are we going to give it a bump to its evasion rate? Let's have a look at this skill tree here. Let's stick with 10 for now. I think that the base evasion rate is always going to end up being between 10 and 12, maybe 13 if we're looking at like something that has some extra feats or something like that. All right. So for our bad guys, because we're bad guys, we're probably going to be looking at a little bit higher of a challenge rating for a level 1 infantry GM. I might end up having to tweak some of these titles. I don't know if they're all going to fit when we start. Well, let's just delete this table. Let's pop that page break back in there. Okay. So, if our base evasion rate is 10, and we are going to add. Wait a second, that doesn't sound right. So, if base evasion rate is 10, reactions modifier +1, so his evasion rate is actually going to be 11. That's going to be the same up here, too, isn't it? Ah, again, math, not my strong suit. Armor points. It's a base of 8, plus engineering, 9, plus proficiency, 10, 11. All in all, not too dangerous. So roughly, if you were dealing damage and if you were dealing like say 1d6 plus 1 damage per round, you average about 4. I think that you'd probably have combat with this would be about 3 rounds, and you'd probably take him out. Let's be honest, the players are going to have much higher stats than this, so their evasion rate is probably going to dictate that the enemies get hit more often than they do, which is cool. I think that players enjoy that. Players enjoy hitting things and not getting hit, at least in my experience. So I think it's better to have them be hit less but take more damage per hit, and then they hit more but don't necessarily kill enemies in one round. Passive perception's still the same. For this, maybe we would do. So I'm trying to think of like, who this pilot is. I imagine if you ever saw the Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt, when the Moore Brotherhood gets their reinforcements, and it's a bunch of GM pilots, but the GM pilots are all like 10 and 11-year-old kids. That's probably who this GM infantry pilot is. So we're going to go ahead and give them, instead of intimidation, we're going to give them acrobatics and perception as their key skills, the ones that they have proficiency in. And so that's actually going to make them more perceptive. Their passive perception goes up, so that's cool. But they're not going to be able to like scare the player. Everything else looks good. Let's swap out this weapon for. I think we've got some stats for a bullpup machine gun. Now, because this. Well, I suppose we could add an unarmed strike to the ball stats, but I think that it'll be better to. I really should have two of this. I really should have two of these open so that I can reference them when I needs to. Alright, let's get back down to where we were at before. And just looking for our equipment. Where did I put the equipment in here? There we go, weapons and loadout. So, I think that for an enemy GM infantry, let's go ahead and copy this because we're gonna need a melee attack and a ranged attack. Ooh, well, we also have the beam spray gun. That is pretty standard issue for a GM. Let's go ahead and do that. That's going to be its ranged attack is the beam spray gun, and the melee weapon is going to be the beam saber. And then maybe at higher levels, you're going to see enemies that have the bullpup machine gun or, bazookas and things like that. Reactions is going to be, you know what, let's go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt. He's going to have a +2 to hit. Why not? Make him a little bit deadlier. And for our beam saber, we do 1d8 plus will damage. So, yep, that's going to be 1, and it's going to be slashing, I believe. Yep. Slashing damage, and the range and ammunition are not relevant to that. So we'll take that out, and got some strange noises going on. Beam spray gun, ranged attack. Now wait a second, did I? It's a good. I don't remember whether in the rules I set it up so that we use will for melee attacks or not. I'm pretty sure that we use reactions for all 2-hit modifiers. Let's look at mobile suit combat step by step. This is the problem when I take breaks from working on this, is I forget all the rules that I came up with. Or borrowed, let's say that. Alright. So, your turn. Making an attack. Breaking up your move. Okay, we've got ranged attacks, melee attacks. Most mobile suits have a 10-meter reach and can thus attack targets within 10 meters of them with a melee attack. And then we've got some unarmed strikes in here. Yeah, I guess we're going to end up using the will modifier for melee attacks. I mean, either one technically makes sense, but I guess if you're used to playing D&D 5e, it makes more sense to use your will modifier. So let's bump that beam saber down, which actually that's kind of cool because it's going to make it so that these particular enemies are less dangerous the closer you get to them. And as I've been studying video game design, one of the cool things that I just heard about. I've never been a big Doom guy. I'm not really big into first person shooters in general, but the new Doom game actually rewards you for getting up close and personal with enemies. And so that's kind of like there's a little bit of that here. You have that motivation for players to get in close because the GM is actually going to be more dangerous as a ranged opponent than as a melee opponent. Just a little trivia. So our beam spray gun is actually only going to do 1d6 plus 2. And I believe that's energy damage. Energy? Yeah, energy. And if I remember correctly, it is a recharge weapon, which means you get 24 shots and only one magazine, so you only got one shot. As far as range, it's going to be one of the shorter ranged weapons, kind of close to like shotgun range, which again is going to make it a little easier on the players, at least at these low levels. And no, he's not going to have any legendary actions. Boom. Now, the GM might actually be one of those that I want to make several levels because I imagine guys are going to be using GMs way late into their careers. So let's do like a level 4, and we'll do another one at like level 7. You know, this is all arbitrary anyway. Uh, Now, that means that your level 4 is probably going to be a CR 1.5. Uh, ooh, the Crag Cat. That's a pretty monstrous bad guy for a. Well, I guess it's got low mental stats, extra low mental stats. Um, but I do like its. Okay, we've got deformed Dwogger. That's not a bad option. Um, Here we go. Yeah, this looks like roughly the kind of stats that we're looking for. So let's borrow from that. We're gonna go ahead and up his will score, up his reactions. Oh, you know what? I also didn't change this out. It's a medium mobile suit, not slut. Medium mobile suit federation. Let's give it some good stats here. Well, he's got his engineering score wouldn't go down. Let's go ahead and bump it up. Why not? Make it a little more damage that he can take. His evasion rate's going to go up. Armor points are going to go up. So we're going to go 4 times 8, 32, plus 2, 34, plus another 2, 36. 36 armor points. Compared to what, the 31 that the ball had? It's close. We'll go ahead and stick with the beam saber, but now it's going to be doing a lot more damage. And as I mentioned, we're going to upgrade his ranged weapon. So I don't specifically have the stats on a bullpup machine gun, but I do have the 90mm machine gun, which I think is the same. Let's have a look here. Be the same caliber. So we're looking at the main rifle of the GM Custom. Yep, 90mm bullpup machine gun. Perfect. So we're just going to use the same stats that I have listed for the regular, probably the Xeon version of the 90 millimeter machine gun. Um, Another thing that I neglected is that the GM is equipped with head Vulcans. So we'll probably add in a bonus action to use head Vulcans. That'd be kind of cool. Actually, it would make sense for a level 4 because I believe that based on our class settings at level 4, you should already have an extra attack as an infantry character. See, I just get a whole lot meaner as I start thinking about all of the things that a bad guy should have in order to beat players. um, yeah, I mean, by level 4, they're going to get a feat, they're going to get improved critical, and an ability score increase. So, I mean, really, I'm being super nice. I really need to be beefing up these guys. They have way more damage potential than I'm giving them credit for. So, let's give them some feats and some, yeah, yeah, some feats, some added abilities. Where are my weapons and loadout? Alright. 90 millimeter bullpup. Ranged attack, +3 to hit. That is a... Oh, wow, it's actually pretty weak. It's only 1d4. Probably because it's a smaller round than the 120 millimeter machine gun. And it's going to be ballistic damage. Our range on that. So first of all, ammo is 60 rounds, 3 magazines per carry. It doesn't make sense. Why did I put... Oh. So this isn't magazines. It's shots per attack. So that means beam spray gun's correct, but this cannon actually needs to be something more like uh, 40 rounds total and 2. I think what I had meant to say is because some of these weapons have the recharge property versus the magazine property. Magazine weapons, you can carry extra ammunition beyond the max that the firearm holds, and recharge, like beam weaponry, you actually have to return and take a short rest in order to recharge those weapons. But they tend to do more damage. Gotcha. See, again, I keep forgetting my intent. And range on that is going to be... So this guy's even deadlier from range. Not 2750. Yeah. And what size are those head Vulcans? 60 millimeters. So 60 millimeter head Vulcans. And we'll call that a ranged attack. +3 to hit. Head Vulcan's pretty weak. Probably, let's just do a flat 2 damage. Yeah. And that will be ballistic. What would you say the ammo on those is? Probably not much. So the damage on the head Vulcans will only be 2 ballistic. We'll probably give them 60 rounds total, and it shoots 2 at a time. In here, our range, that's going to be pretty close range. Let's give it the same as the beam spray gun. So 75 meter and 250 is the extended range. Captain Snowball in the chat, what's up? All right. Now, Scott, do you approve, Scott, of this mobile suit? All right. So now, for a level 7 character, we're going to want it to be roughly twice the CR rating of our level 4 enemy. So we're going to make it a CR2, which means we're going to hop back into D&D Beyond. God, they should really pay me for all this free advertisement. I'm just kidding. So we've got some characters here. But this is more of a mental character. You ever notice how boring it is sometimes when you're going through D&D enemies and you're like, you know that they're either going to be high in the physical and low in the mental category, or high in the mental and low in the physical. So you're either going to have like a mage, or you're going to have a dinosaur that's, stupid but strong. That's why I've always found dragons fascinating in Dungeons and Dragons, because they're the only creature that they sometimes give like high charisma scores to, high wisdom. Um, you know, that's just my own little complaint. But I think that this looks like a good. This looks good. So we're going to borrow these scores from the bandit captain. Bump him up to 15 will. 16 reactions. 14 engineering. Yeah, he's going to be pretty tough. Well, I mean, for a regular old bad guy. And let's go ahead and give him the 14 cunning. You know, this is probably an officer. Probably has a little more charisma. Alright, now for the fun part where I embarrass myself again. So for our evasion rate, the base evasion rate is 10, plus reactions 3, 13, plus proficiency. It's actually pretty tough to hit. 15, that's pretty good, I mean, by 5e standards. Um, I remember I was DMing a 5e game, but I was using a 3.5 bad guy, and the big bad evil guy had an AC of 29, which is virtually impossible to hit in in 5e. Armor points, we're looking at 10 times 7, so we're starting at 70 plus engineering 72. Are we adding proficiency to the armor points? I don't believe we are. I think it's just 72. Let me double check my math on that. Oh, well that's why, because it's 8, not duh. So let's see. 7 times 8 is 56. 56 plus 2, so we're looking at 58 armor points. And so you see that like the scaling of this is kind of like it's like got a parabolic curve to it. You know, everyone's going to kind of start roughly in the same place, and then as you level up, you're going to see the divergence of hit points pretty quick. I also didn't fix these speeds. Alright, and I think for now, we're just going to copy the existing attack values from the level 4 GM, but it's going to be a little beefier, right? Wrong. That's roughly the same. That's cool. I think just having the extra armor points and the higher evasion rate alone is going to make him uh, much more deadly. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, so I guess I didn't add his proficiency to his evasion rate before. Did I do that with the ball? I am just losing it. Yeah. I mean, these guys would obviously be proficient in their own mobile suit. So his evasion rate's actually 13. This one would be 3 plus 2, 15. right? Yeah. This is actually a 14. See, this is looking a lot more like a challenge. All right, I think that is it for our GM, at least for now. Let's hop into. I feel like we're, we're getting a little boring. Let's let's spice this up with we can go through all of these GMs, but let's be honest. What you guys really want to see is a Gundam. So let's do some Gundam stats. Just show you how much more distinctly powerful these guys are going to be. Alright, old granddaddy Gundam. Now I might have given away the surprise already. Um, so as far as proficiencies go, you will need to be proficient in Gundam type mobile suits to use a Gundam. But in my little guide here, you'll find that the base armor points for a Gundam are going to be. Well, I have them listed as 10 here, but you know, let's go 11. And then we can reserve 12, which would be probably the highest base armor point you would want to use for some of the like nastier bosses and things like that. Let's see here. Base evasion rate for the Gundam is going to be a 12, and base gen cap is going to be a 20. Now, do we give the Gundam a mid-air speed? We don't have to, but it would seem kind of cool, wouldn't it? Although some of these speeds seem a little fudged. Little fudged. So I think 60 meters is actually the base speed. So let's actually go in and fix this. Undersea, he'd move at half speed. That makes sense. Space, he doesn't quite move at half speed, but yeah, 50 is actually good. So let's fix the GM and the ball as well, because that's going to drive me nuts. So space 50, land 60, undersea 30. That's good. What's wrong, Sammy? Bump up the land to 60. So in that case, we're going to want to revisit the ball and bump up its speed. Do we want to make it 80? Let's make it 70. It gets a little bit of advantage, being that it doesn't have legs. It can fly a little faster than. And who knows? This might be one of those terribly unbalanced things that I'll have to fix later. But I think that it gives them an opportunity to use that unit tactics ability that we gave them. Let's see here. Oh man, sorry for my glugs. Got to stay hydrated. Speeds are good. Speeds are good. All right. So you take a little bit of a hit to your speed when you're in space because there's nothing to grab onto. You're just kind of floating. And so you're relying on the jets of the mobile suit to kind of steer you. All right. So that's all good. Now, I don't think that you are ever going to come across a level 1 Gundam, let's be honest. So, let's say that your base, if you were going to get caught, is going to be a level 8. Is that too low? No, we'll do like a level 8, level 15, level 20. So, we're going to want to base these stats on roughly a CR8. These look like decent stats, but I think we could do better. Wow, really? What do you guys think? Any suggestions for what would be a good, something good to pull stats from? Obviously not a T-Rex. I think 25 strength is just a little too crazy. Looking at some of these, I gotta wonder, how are these really that big of a challenge? See, now this is more like it. We've got, a medium humanoid. I never played Dragon Heist, the Waterdeep um, module, but I'm sure it's good. So we're gonna use Siraj the Hunter's stats here. It seems like kind of a wild variation in stat blocks for enemies that are all supposed to be roughly CR8, so it just seems strange to me. But seeing as how this is one of the more recent releases, I'm sure it's a little bit more balanced than the stuff that came in the original Monster Manual, so 18, 18, 18. Yeah, this guy is going to be kind of a boss. Plus 0. Alright, so our Big Daddy Gundam bad guy. Nice bad guy. If you are a Xeon pilot, You do not want this guy coming after you because he's pretty nasty. And we're actually going to give him intimidation back as one of those key skills. Heck, we might even add a feature in there. Uh, White Devil of the Federation, I believe, was the, what did they call it? I thought they called it the White Devil, or White Demon, something like that. RX 78-2. White Devil of the Federation. That is going to be a special ability to instill fear. Um, let's see, how is this phrased for monsters in D&D? Let's open up a new tab here. We're gonna pull up some dragons. Some dragons. Frightful presence. Yeah, I think this will work out nicely. We're just gonna borrow that flavor text. So we'll say each enemy of the Gundam pilot's choice that is within, what would that be? We'll call it 300 meters. That's I suppose in the Gundam Wing version of this, ability will be called "It's a Gundam." And aware of it, must succeed on a DC. Do we want to make that mentality or psychic saving throw? We'll make it a psychic saving throw. But we can drop the DC by 1. I think that'll be fair. Or become frightened for 1 minute. An enemy can repeat this saving throw at the end of each of its turn, ending the effect on itself on a successful. And if a target's saving throw is successful or the effect ends, the target is immune to the Gundam's frightful presence. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. That is a cool ability. CR8 will give him some damage resistance. He takes half damage on ballistic. Oh man, calculating all this stuff out, it's gonna be nuts. So actually that is passive perception. That's already easy. Okay. Evasion rate. The base evasion rate is 12. plus his engineering, or plus his, oof, oof. 16. It'd be 18 with his proficiency bonus. Is that too high? I feel like that's too high. That might be a little high. Let's drop that. If only to bring that evasion rate to something within shouting distance. Um, yeah, let's drop the base evasion rate to 11. I think 12 is just abusive. Because let's see, what was that? What was that one enemy's? It is 17. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. It gives the players a little bit of a bonus because if they have the Gundam, they have a base evasion rate of 12, and it makes this guy a little bit more nasty. So we'll just drop his reactions by a little bit so that his evasion rate drops to 17 instead of 18. I think that's reasonable. Melee attack, plus 4 to hit, 1d8 plus 4 slashing damage. And this guy's going to have a beam rifle. Ranged attack, plus 3 to hit. 1d8 plus 3 energy damage. Is that correct? Yep. And that is a recharge weapon, so we are not going to have any of this ammunition stuff. The range on the beam rifle is 250 and 1,000. So I think that's a pretty nasty bad guy. I think a level 8 Gundam infantry unit would do some stomping. Um, and come to think of it, at level 8, he's looking at having some multi-attack. He's definitely going to have some multi-attack. Um, See, and this is one of those tricky things about my decision to remove class features from the classes and just leave it up to the player to pick out what feats they want to select. Because now, as I'm creating these enemies, they are nothing's kind of pre-baked for you. You kind of have to like go and dig through it, which is all the more reason why I wanted to do this and have some, out of the box enemies for GMs to use in their campaigns, um, aka me to use in my campaign. Tut, 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 tut. Where is the multiple attack feat? I just need the text for the multiple attack. Did I not? I know there's a multi attack in here. Is it extra attack? What the heck did I do? Boop, boop, ba-doop, boop. Yeah, okay. So it's 5th level. 5th level, you get the extra attack. and it increases to 3. So let's go ahead and put that in the features. This enemy attacks twice instead of once whenever it takes the attack action on its turn. Not to be confused with the combo attack feat. That's what I was getting mixed up with. But there still are a bunch of feats that this would get, and it's tough because, you know, when you're making enemies, you don't really think about like ability score increases as their level goes up because technically their ability scores are just going to be what they're going to be. It's not like the enemies are going to level up, unless you're creating like a specific BBEG for your players to fight. Let's give that the bold. Do we give it the head Vulcans? Does the Gundam need head Vulcans? I think you could use some head Vulcans. I think that might make it more of a threat. Alright. So that is our level 8 Gundam. Man, he's got so many stats that he doesn't even fit in one column. Let's add a column break. I just can't stand when these things get like broken. And hopefully having every enemy in this, codex of mobile suits is going to make it easier for anyone who wants to GM a game using these stats. You can basically just like cut out that tab. I wanted to make everything as easy to use in this guide as possible. I know there's a lot of sections that are just a lot of text, and I want to cut down on that as much as I can. And that's another big update that is going to happen to this rule book is, of course, going to be the artwork, which I have been working on. I hope you guys will enjoy it. It's nothing fancy. It's a lot of neat Photoshop work. I'm not a particularly good artist. You might have seen the drawings that I had in there initially. Um, what I'm doing a lot more of for this version of the artwork is going to be photo composites and things like that. But they look good, trust me. And it's going to give the book um, a nice visual appeal. All right. So let's look at a level 12. Hmm. Hmm. A level 12 Gundam. Medium Mobile Suit Federation. I'm probably not going to tinker with its stats too much because, as we saw, oh, I never calculated its armor points. Puh, duh. So if his base armor points are 11 times 8 because of his level, let me just make sure that I'm doing this right. I feel like I've got these numbers way wrong. It's not been a good day for numbers for me. Let's be honest. Um, There we go. Armor points are calculated by multiplying the armor of the mobile suit by the character's level and adding the character's engineering modifier for each level. For each level. Okay. So I've been calculating these wrong so far, which is okay. I mean, it makes it a little easier on the player, but So what this is actually going to be is you take the base armor points, you add the engineering modifier, 15. 15 times 8, which is going to be 80 plus 32, 112. Is that right? Scott, don't judge me. I've got some scrap paper in front of me here. Uh, da, 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 da. Right? Yeah. 15, 8, 80, 32. Yeah, 112. So 112 armor points. What does that sound like compared to this guy? So this guy is Ziraj the Hunter, who is apparently a CR8, has 153 hit points. Maybe I'm going to need to add that proficiency bonus per level. I think that that's going to be what it takes. Because if we add the proficiency bonus per level, that's going to be 16. So, or well, actually, it wouldn't be 16 because the proficiency bonus jumps at level 5. So it'd be 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 3, 3, 3, 3. So 8 plus 24, 32. So we're adding another 32 points. That sounds more like it. So we'd be looking at 144. Yeah, 144 armor points. That sounds a lot more deadly. So now, man, don't you guys appreciate all this math that I'm doing for you? Alright, so we've got 15 plus, yeah, no, 15, and that's going to be multiplied by 12. 15 by 12. Don't judge me. I do this all so that you don't have to do it at the table, and all this stuff is prepared for you in advance. So at level 12, you're going to have 4 levels of your proficiency bonus being plus 4, meaning we've got plus 2, plus 1, plus 4, 228. So a Gundam at level 12 is going to be 228 armor points. That seems pretty nasty. But actually not crazy. I mean, if you look here in the Dungeons and Dragons 5e, you're looking at a black dragon with an armor class of 19. Its CR is only 14, and he's got 195 hit points. So, I mean, and he's got um, way more abilities than I think that this Gundam is going to have. Um, so that's another thing that you kind of have to factor in, is that it's not just all about hit points. This thing keeps tugging me. Um, Now I believe at this level you get to attack 3 times instead of once. Yeah, that makes this level 12 Gundam pretty nasty. Maybe we should give him some special abilities. I mean, what can a dragon do? I mean, it's got the regular attacks, bite, claw, tail, frightful presence. We've got that in there. And then we've got what I would consider a spell-like ability. You know, the breath attack. Hmm. Do we give it more resistances, do you think? Do we give it legendary actions? I don't know. I'm loath to give it more abilities than I think it deserves, especially when we're going to start throwing in mobile armors and new type abilities and things like that. I think we're going to leave this as is. I think that that's significant. That's a pretty significant challenge. Bump the CR up to 12 on that guy. And then, here's the fun part. Insert a little column break here. Level 18, RX-78 Gundam. Are we gonna bump up his stats, or are we just gonna make him a bigger bag of hit points? Or do we give him some legendary actions? Hmm. Hmm. I don't know. We might have to come back to that guy. See, because down here is where I think we're gonna see a lot more of that. A lot more of those legendary actions is when you get to the bonus stuff, the Big Zam, Ad Zam, the Dendrobium Orcus, my favorite of the Gundam Project Gundams. Um, yeah, I guess we're just gonna bump his hit points up again, which sounds crazy. I mean, let's see. You're looking at 15 times. He's level 18, 270 plus 32 plus 16. 5, 5, 5, 6. Yeah, you're looking at 344 hit points for this guy. Did I read that right? I'm not dyslexic. 344. That's it. So I mean, yeah, a Gundam is like a dragon. It's just a big bag of hit points. You probably have more deadly enemies out there, and I think that that's going to become more apparent as we work through some of these others. But I wanted you to see what like a big bad would look like. Um, so how long have we been going? We've been going almost 2 hours here. Um, so I hope this has been some good insight into my process. It's a lot of uh, copy paste and then reflavor. Um, Consider changing to hit 2. I don't want that. So let's go a little crazy with it. Let's hop to the Big Zam. I think that this will be a much more fun example for us to play with because this will be a bad guy that, um, well, I mean, players aren't even going to get to use. Well, yeah, I'll be nice. I'll put in the stats so that players can use a Big Zam if they wanted to, but I don't anticipate. I'm not going to let my players use a Big Zam. Let's put it that way. But this is going to be a good example for us because we're going to see not just, another medium mobile suit. This is actually. How big would you say the Big Zam is? Do you want to call it huge? Dragons are huge. Yeah, let's Let's call the Big Zam a huge mobile armor. Now, as I mentioned before, we are going to use this tag system in order to restrict access, not not restrict access, but we're going to disincentivize players from using mobile suits and mobile armors that they are not proficient in, meaning we are going to give it the mobile armor property. And let's see, what have we got here? Mm, where are my tags? Um, do we call it an elite slash custom mobile suit? I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, we're going to call it elite and custom. And that means you're going to need 2 proficiencies in order to max out your proficiency bonus for the Big Zam. Now, the Big Zam is big, so the evasion rate is going to be a little lower. However, that base armor point, do we go crazy with it? Do we make it 14? I think that's compared to what in our mobile suit stats that I have drafted here. I mean, nobody's higher than a 12 on here, or higher than an 11, really. The Zeong and the Gun Tank are the only things that have a high armor point value. So I'm thinking let's do 14 for now and see where that takes us. Um, and a lot of that is just coming down to I don't think that a level 1 pilot is ever going to get into a mobile armor like this. So having base armor points is kind of a moot point. But what it does allow you to do is calculate that out if you wanted to gimp or buff a Big Zam. So this is another thing that Matt Colville talks about in his videos on D&D, where he talks about like, okay, so say you've got a Medusa and you want your level 1 players to go up against a Medusa, but you know that the Medusa is too strong for them, so you gimp her abilities a little bit. In D&D 5e, that I'm not going to rip on D&D 5e because it's like my favorite edition ever, but they the designers did not give you base stats with which to kind of level these things out for yourself. What I'm doing here is I'm actually developing those base stats so that you can set the level that you want and do the math yourself. I'm going to do the math for you for a couple of what I would consider, you know, standard enemies. Like, you're not going to throw a Big Zam at your level 1 party, but if you wanted to, I've given you the resources to do that. I think that's cool. Um, and we're gonna stick with the same gen cap as the Gundam here. Would you argue that the Big Zam actually has a higher move speed than a random mobile suit? Um, my feeling on this is that uh, if we were looking at this in miniatures combat and we had a grid laid out, and the Big Zam's obviously going to take up what 9 squares on the grid, giving it a higher move speed is kind of overkill because technically, if you start your move in like that corner of the grid and you move the same number of spaces, I mean, yeah, I think that leaving the speeds as is fine. So let's actually, again, thank you, Scott, for sending me the link to the Gundam Wiki because I am actually using it more often than I thought I was going to tonight. All right. So I think we're going to do this at the same levels that we did the Gundam for. I think a level 8 Big Zam, a level 12 Big Zam, and a level 18. That sounds about right. 8 Big Zam. Now these guys, I think that they're going to be classless enemies, you know? Does it really matter whether it's an infantry pilot or a cyber new type? I mean, Big Zam's Big Zam. It's not going to have funnels or anything like that, so we are going to call this the Duchy of Zeon. Well, let's be American with it. Principality. But yeah, I'm glad that I'm putting this, that I kind of skipped ahead, because I think that this is going to be a lot more insightful than if I just did, you know, a whole bunch of GMs and it's like, yeah, we get it. All right. I'm going to whip out my calculator again because I'm an idiot. Oh, you know what? We probably need some stats in here, don't we? Heck, why don't we use the dragon stats? That actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So we're going to do 23 will. Let's leave that at 16 because we're not actually going to give it the same. I mean, we're basically like flopping the charisma and dexterity, or in our case, the cunning and reactions. Um, 21 engineering. 14 int slash mentality. We can drop its psychic ability. Doesn't need that. All right. Intimidation, I think, is a fair thing for the Big Zam to have. So let's calculate this out. Base evasion rate is... Oh, well, I need to bump up these stats here. So we'll do a +6 on that, and a +5 on its engineering bonus. +2 here. Alright. So, base evasion rate is an 8. +2 for proficiency. Actually, it'd be a +3 for proficiency because it's a level 8. So it's 11 +3. We're looking at 14 evasion rate. That makes sense. You know, it's a big freaking target. You're probably going to be able to shoot it pretty easily. However, and this is where it's probably going to get pretty nasty, if our base armor points are 14, 14 times 8, da, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then let's look at our proficiency bonuses again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're looking at 172 armor points. Actually doesn't seem that bad, now that I think about it. Compared to the Gundam? What was the Gundam at? 144? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. Passive perception. Da, 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 da. Looks good. I guess technically we would use this same thing, but we would just call it Frightful Presence. And this enemy attacks twice. It's fair. Yeah. Let's take a look at some of the weapons that the old Big Zam has.
You give your best every day.
Ugh.
No matter what the
Ads. Always ads. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with my favorite attack, the kick, because that is a thing that it does. Ooh, okay. So it has an eye field generator, meaning that we're going to give it some energy weapon resistance. Now, do we want to give it essentially a dragon's breath attack? Like, yeah, let's do that. We're gonna make the large mega particle gun basically its breath attack. So large mega particle gun. Let's call it cannon. Come on. Gun is such a childish word. Hmm. Forgot to add recharge. 5-6. Now, of course, anybody who plays D&D 5e knows what the recharge means. Every turn when you are playing as a DM and you've got a dragon, every turn that you use that breath attack, you roll a d6, and if you roll a 5 or a 6, the attack recharges and you can use it on your next turn. If you roll anything below that, you don't get to use it again until you recharge again. So every turn you have to roll a d6 to see if you recharge that ability. And I think that that's a pretty cool way of treating things like mega particle cannons or the hyper mega launcher from the Zeta Gundam. I think that that's going to be how we handle that too. I think that's a cool mechanic. I think it's a very underused mechanic in D&D 5e. And then we've got our anti-aircraft mega particle gun, mega particle cannon. So we got that. We're going to add the air-to-air missile. And the 105 millimeter Vulcan gun. So this thing is really armed to the teeth. Legendary actions. Should we give our Big Zam legendary actions? Hmm. Yeah, let's do it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to borrow the legendary actions text. We're going to paste it in here. We're going to say the Big Zam can take 3 legendary actions, choosing from the options below. Only one can be used at a time, and only at the end of an enemy turn of another, let's say another combatant. Because if you do have, it's basically like using a reaction. And the Big Zam regains spent legendary actions at the end of its turn. I might come up with new verbiage for legendary actions. Legendary actions sounds cool for D&D, but for Gundam it just doesn't fit. So instead of wing attack, what we're going to do is we're going to do the barrage. If you've ever played any of the Gundam versus games, or yeah, no, just the Gundam versus games is what I'm thinking of, and you get to play as the Big Zam, there's like that attack where he fires the hyper mega particle cannon and then like does the spray attack around the side. I think that's, yeah, we'll call it the hyper mega particle barrage. How's that? Or we can just say mega particle barrage. Costs 2 actions. We'll say the Big Zam fires in all directions. We'll say each target, not creature, within 10 feet. So if 5 feet is 30 meters in our assessment, no, 5 feet is 10 meters. So then 10 feet would be 20 meters of the Big Zam. Must succeed on a DC 19 dexterity saving throw. Oh, man, that's nasty. But you know what? It is the Big Zam. Or take 13. Change that to energy damage. And be knocked prone. And then we'll say it can move half of its movement speed. We'll say a kick. The Big Zam makes a kick attack. And detect. While I agree that it shouldn't be something that's just combat because combat can get kind of boring, detect is that, yeah, let's do it. Because that is something that will help combat infiltrator class. Because I imagine you're going to have some players that have the cunning action, the ability to hide as an infiltrator. They're going to hide from the Big Zam and they're going to wait until their turn. So, at the end of an infiltrator character's turn, the Big Zam can make a perception check. Which I'm sure is why they gave detect as a legendary action for the dragon, so that people couldn't be cowards. I'm just kidding, Scott. You're not a coward. I like rogues. All right, so already this Big Sam is looking pretty nasty, and I haven't even filled in its like attacks yet. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So the kick is a melee attack. Now, I currently have it set so that a melee attack does like what 1d4 of damage if you are a medium mobile suit. Let's say that because he's a little beefy, a kick from the Big Zam, I almost said dragon, um, melee attack plus 6 to hit because that is his will modifier. I see a lot of players getting ticked off that they're going to get hit by this thing a lot. And it's going to be 1d8 plus 6 damage. Bludgeoning. Let's take a look at that dragon again and see what kind of damage these guys are doing. So this is a... We're going to go ahead and copy the text out of this one because I think that that's the best way to handle the mega particle cannon attacks. It's kind of like I mentioned this before that I drew some of the inspiration from the SD Gundam G Generation Genesis game. I'm super obsessed with that game. I think I've probably put about 1,800 hours into it. I ended up getting it on the PS Vita, um, so my wife probably doesn't know that I played it that much. But um, but yeah, one of the things that like one of the special abilities they call them map attacks because they they're relevant to the map that you're actually playing on. It's not like you target one enemy; you just make an attack that targets the entire map. And I think that that's how these sorts of attacks should be handled. Like whether it's a mega particle cannon barrage or you know what is it, the Gundam Easy 8 when it's got like, it's two guns and the Vulcans and the chest cannons all going at the same time. Gundam Heavy Arms too. That's going to be a good one. I know Chris, you're probably looking forward to the Gundam Wing expansion. All right, I've blathered on enough. Let's paste this stuff in here. So, the Big Zam fires a cannon in a 60-foot line. 60 foot. Let's translate that. So times 2, 120-meter line that is 10 meters wide. Do you think it should be a cone? I think it should be a line. I like the line because it's a beam weapon. Fires in a line. There will probably be ones where we do missile barrages and things like that where it'll be a cone of damage instead of a line, but I think that line in this case works really well. So every target in that line must make a DC dexterity. We're going to replace that with reactions. Let's just see. Let's test the reaction time of your brand new mobile suit. For those of you that were wondering why I chose reactions instead of reflexes or dexterity for that particular thing, it was from that line from Shar Aznable saying, "Let's just test the reaction time of your brand new mobile suit." So, they make their saving throw, or they take 54 12d8 energy damage. on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. It's pretty nasty. I think that is a nasty attack. Now, as for these weapons, these are kind of interesting ones because we've got an energy weapon, we've got a explosive weapon, and we've got a ballistic weapon. Let's take a look at the existing stats that I have and see what will be the best translatable weapons. So, 105 millimeter is somewhere in between 90 millimeter machine gun and 120 millimeter machine gun. But seeing as how we've already given this guy some pretty nasty attacks, and this is classified as a Vulcan gun, we're just going to use the same stats as the 90 millimeter machine gun. So it's going to be a ranged attack plus what, 3 to hit? So I mean this guy is really nasty up close. I mean, from a ranged perspective, he really isn't that much of a threat. So plus 3 to hit, and he's going to deal 1d4 plus 3 ballistic damage. And you know what? Heck with it. I feel like I probably don't need to put ammunition down for, a legendary bad guy like this. Call me a sadist, but, I just don't think that the Big Zam is going to run out of ammo fighting a bunch of scrubs in mobile suits. I might revisit that. We'll see. When we get down to play testing these kinds of things, I'll definitely want to see how. I mean, honestly, you have so many freaking attacks as this Big Zam that the likelihood of you running out of ammunition on any of these is highly, highly, highly unlikely. But you never know. So, air to air missile. We will probably use the stats from the regular Hyper Bazooka. Sounds about right. Although 1d12 of damage is a little high, especially considering, you know, one thing as a game designer, um, and in this case, I'm speaking as a game designer for DMs, I want to kind of manipulate the behavior of DMs a bit. And, Mike Merles would say the same thing about D&D 5e is that you want to encourage the DMs to do certain things with certain bad guys. And while I want to give these options and say like, "Hey, you can use an air-to-air missile as the Big Zam," I want you to use the mega particle cannon. Like, I want there to be an incentive to use it. So, one of the things that I'm trying to balance here is yes, I want to give you alternative attacks because if you roll a 4 on your recharge for the large mega particle cannon, you just don't get to attack that turn. I think that that's unfair. So, you have these alternative attacks, but I don't want to make these attacks deal so much damage that it no longer is worth using the mega particle cannon. So, it's one of those little sneaky human engineering things that game designers do is it's like, you kind of you want to give options, but you kind of want to make one a little bit more appealing and make the high risk one always more appealing. In general, I think that players have a better time when they're playing high risk, high reward. You don't want players to get comfortable. You don't want players uh, to get bored, really. And that goes for both the players and the DM because the DM is just another player. The GM is just another player. So, I want the GM to have a good time too. Well, because, usually I am a GM, so. All right. Now, all of that said, the reason I brought that up is because I have the Hyper Bazooka listed as a 1d12 plus reaction damage of explosive damage. So I think that that's a little too much. We're going to do 1d8 plus reaction modifier, so plus 3 of explosive damage. That's going to be the air to air missiles. And then the anti aircraft mega particle cannon. Um, Here's another one of those things is like, yes, in name only, it's a mega particle cannon, but I don't want you to use this more than you use the 12d8 mega particle cannon. So, so yeah, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make this a ranged attack. I'm not gonna make it as weak as say like the beam spray gun, but it is going to be only 1d6 of damage. I think that that's fair. 1d6 plus 3 energy damage. And another huge bonus that the Big Zam has is it's got a kick, bludgeoning damage. It's got beam weapons, energy damage. It's got missiles, explosive damage. And it's got the Vulcan gun, ballistic damage. It deals several different types of damage, and so no matter what kind of players come at it with what kind of resistances, the DM is going to have options to deal damage to each of them, and I think that that's a neat ability. Um, the last thing you want is for your big bad evil guy to be effective against three members of the party, but one of them is completely immune. Like, that would suck. So I think that that is pretty good. He might be a little overpowered for a CR8. He's probably closer to like a CR12. Let's be honest. But you know, better too tough than too weak in my opinion. So yeah, we've been going for a little while here, about 2.5 hours. I think I might call it there just so that I can let the dog out, do that kind of thing, let you guys get on with your night. But I appreciate everyone who did stop by and check this out. I mean, I had a lot of fun, obviously. And I hope that this gives you some insight on the kind of work that I'm doing in order to get this book developed. Um, Moving forward, here's basically what my timeline looks like for this project, because I'm particularly excited about it. Um, so I want to get this part of the book done, the Codex of Mobile Suits. Um, Ben, friend of the channel, provided me with a list of D&D 5e spells that have been converted over into new type abilities. So technically, the new type abilities list is already written. Thank you, Ben. You are awesome. It's just going to be on me to go in, write flavor text to make sure that um, make sure that the damage types and things like that are relevant to this game, and ranges. Ranges is a big thing because being in mobile suits, everything's being converted from feet to meters, and so that's kind of frustrating when you're working with already existing content. But once those two things are done, I feel like we've got enough here that we can do some playtesting, and I'll probably be streaming some playtest games. As I might have mentioned to some of you, uh, I do have. Um, let's see here. And you know what? I'll go ahead and I'm feeling a little saucy, so I will go ahead and share with you guys the one-page recap. Um, again, inspired by Matt Colville, I wanted to provide a one pager that kind of sets the stage for the players in my campaign. Now, this is going to give away a little bit about my campaign that I'm going to run as our test. But I think that you guys are going to enjoy it. I mean, it's definitely kind of my favorite era of the UC universe. So here's setting the stage for the campaign that we're going to play. It's the end of the 1 Year War. The year is Universal Century 0084. 5 years after the Duchy of Zeon surrendered to the Earth Federation in a conflict that cost humanity half of its total population, the Earth and its surrounding colonies are finally enjoying a tenuous peace. The newly formed Republic of Zeon resides almost entirely at Side 3 and the Axis mining asteroid, while exiles of Zeon are left on Earth and throughout the colonies. Operation Stardust. If you're familiar with Gundam 0083, Stardust Memory, 3 months ago, Zeon remnants called the Delaz fleet carried out a mission known as Operation Stardust, which exposed the Federation's secret development of a Gundam equipped with a nuclear warhead, a clear violation of the Antarctic Treaty. The nuke was stolen by Zeon and used at the Federation Naval Review, wiping out 2/3 of the Federation's military fleet. These Zeon attacks and others like them were used to justify the commission of a special forces branches of the Federation military with an ongoing mission to wipe out the Zeon remnants known as the Titans. In the early days of the Titans, though, there aren't enough trained personnel to actually be Titans pilots, necessitating the use of contractors and mercenaries. This is where the players are going to come in. As newly commissioned officers in the Titan Special Forces, you are going to be stationed aboard a small Magellan class battleship and given orders to quell an uprising at a colony in Side 6. As a Special Forces unit, you can operate with autonomy. This gives the players a little bit more agency. They don't have to kind of bend the knee to Federation or Zeon. But we'll get into that. But you will not receive any official support while you are in the field. So I'm going to start the players off at level 3 mobile suit pilots. And, as far as backgrounds go, I wanted to kind of give some options available. So individually, you could be Federation regular soldiers looking to rise more quickly through the ranks. Uh, you're going to be welcome pretty much anywhere within the Federation military. You could be a freelancer or a mercenary taking advantage of a big government contract. Kind of like Sir Bronn of the Blackwater from Game of Thrones. That would be an opportunity here. Or you could be a Xeon soldier looking for redemption. Somebody that got left behind, and you're just trying to make your way back home. Maybe you're wearing a Titans uniform. Or you could be a stowaway. Just one of those 14-year-old Gundam pilot kids that stows away on the battleship and finds themselves in a mobile suit. So those are just some options. But so this is the one-page recap that kind of sets the stage for the campaign that we're going to be running. And I'm excited to see who's going to be a part of it. Um, but yeah, so if it sounds exciting to you, do let me know. So yeah, that's like I said, that's going to be everything. Hopefully that's all going to be done by the end of the month, and we can start, towards the end of summer, launching this first Gundam campaign, and then from there, we'll make kind of little tweaks and see how things are balancing out, and yeah, we can move on to campaign settings and develop more and more, sort of more and more mobile suits, more and more classes and feats and things like that. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in for this live stream. Hopefully the quality was better than my last live stream, which was terrible. Um, so yeah, I appreciate you guys sticking it out, and I hope that gave you a little insight into how I've been doing this. And if you like this, leave a thumbs up on the stream, and it'll be kind of it'll make me want to do this more often, so that we can kind of like have back and forth and get some more user input. Anyway, I hope you guys have a lovely evening. I will be taking off. See you guys later.